Very nice to meet you.
It's really great to be here, to see you here, to take part in this situation, which is very special and unusual for Lili and for anybody who's going to learn in public. I always say it's a bit like going to the doctor in public. It's not something you might choose to do. And therefore, on that basis, and because I've had many experiences of doing this myself, in your situation, when I was your age, I'm very appreciative of how we deal with very personal things, in a way, in education, in learning about music. And so I will tread very gently and carefully, knowing how it feels to be in your situation. And at the same time, it's a fascinating process that we go through to learn music. And most importantly, and I think following from what Steve said, was that the most important thing for us is to learn how to learn, because there is no end point. With Bach, it goes through your life. Every day of your life that you play Bach, you learn something else, and there is no point of arrival. It's just continual discovery. So Bach is a perfect example of a learning process, and it is also the thing that keeps us as musicians really inspired and keeps the momentum, because we do make discoveries about it all the time. And if I think back to when I recorded the Bach suites many years ago, I know that the day after I recorded them, I wanted to do it again, differently. And I'm sure if I had done, the following day I would have wanted to record it again differently. Because Bach doesn't actually tell us exactly what to do. He gives us an enormous amount of space to learn about the music and to find our way in the music. And everybody plays Bach, well, should play Bach in their own way. And we should never judge them for playing it differently, which is actually quite hard in the music world, because musicians tend to be very super critical about the way people play Bach. And they say, no, you can't play Bach like that. And I always think, well, yes, you can. You can play it. And sometimes you hear somebody playing Bach cello suites on a saxophone, jazzed up or something, and it's wonderful. And you hear a violinist playing Bach cello suites, or a flute player or something, and it always sounds fantastic, because the music is the work of a genius. So it's really about how we find our way to perform Bach, but also to understand that he also, although he didn't tell us how to express it, he gave us very strict guidelines as how to see the structure of the music. Anyway, I won't say too much first, because you might just play it so wonderfully that I'll say, okay, next. Who's on after you? Because you've just done it so beautifully. So I think, first of all, please tell me what you would like to play.
So I'm going to play the Allemande and the Gigue from Suite 6.
Allemande and Gigue from Suite 6. Okay. Oh, well, there's so much just to say by playing it that I will try to stop talking too much. First thing is, I'd just like to listen to you. And we don't know each other. I don't think I've ever heard you play before. So it's a new experience for me. And what I want to say, Lili, is that I'm here to help you. And that means that if you need to ask me anything, please grab the moment. And anything that you would like. And it doesn't have to be very specific to the Bach. It can be about cello playing, it about performing. It can be about, well, whatever comes to your mind, really, that you would like to ask in this very short time that we have. I'm, in the meantime, trying to just get some sort of general impression. And actually, what I tend to do is I kind of scan. I scan you, and I can say, okay, this is how I think she's playing. This is what I think she wants. And I'm getting messages. And from experience, I'm looking at, what can I do to help you? How can I see what you're trying to do and how I can help you achieve that more quickly? And also, I'm just really appreciating what you do. So if I can maybe just sit here, and I'm not too close to anybody, am I? And, Well done, Lili. I mean, it's very brave to just suddenly play this suite. I mean, the sixth suite, which is written for a cello with 5 strings, we have a missing string, so it makes it incredibly difficult to play this repertoire. And well done, really, for bringing it off so well and so convincingly, and for making strong, good sound, which is, you know, making sound in Bach is probably the most difficult of all composers. First of all, you're alone, which means that you never get to, you know, have a conversation with the pianist, take a break for a couple of bars, catch your breath, come back in again, whatever. You're just playing all the time. And Bach really doesn't also write any rests for you just even to have silences. He writes, tell me if you agree, basically like a choir. He's writing all the parts of the choir. And while you're playing one line, we kind of imagine the other line, then hop into the other line and hop back, and he'll keep suggesting. And it's us, we kind of fill in the spaces. So we end up hearing this range of things going on all the time. But it also means that it's really hard work because you are jumping all the time. And because we're jumping strings, we have to start the next string off, and then the next string, and the next string. And actually, perhaps not quite so much in this suite, as we'll see in other examples later on in the class, because we have this thing about Bach where he just jumps us about from one thing to another. If I just give you a quick example, I mean, we all know, see if I can, it's anywhere to plant my cello. Yeah, maybe that's, you can see. But, you know, we all know, it's just jumping all the time. We're just always moving around. And in a way, the cello prefers just for us to play on one string because we get the string going and we can carry on. But because we're jumping all the time, it makes sound production hard work because every string demands a little different treatment. But anyway, before I get in too much involved in that, let's go back to what you're doing so well, which is actually just to control what you're doing and to have control of the sound. And I think, of course, our job is to try to make that work better for you. And in order to make sound, we need to breathe. Because we're basically like singers or wind players, we're blowing the sound out to the audience. So when you're playing it's kind of, we want to flow a wave of sound. After all, it's sound waves that we're dealing with. So we're trying to create waves. So to be creating waves, if you imagine you're pushing the water. If you push the water too fast, you just skate over the top. If you go too deep and too hard, you're not making an impression. So we're trying to find that point where you move the sound, move the string, and that requires, of course, a movement in your body and breathing. And it's hard to know where to breathe when you play the cello because, you know, you don't have to, like a wind player, have specific places to start again. We just carry on. And it's a kind of major topic of conversation for us. Where do we breathe? Do we breathe with the music? Do we breathe independently? Do we not think about it? Do we think about it? But I think we need to think about it in enough that we are breathing easily. And of course, when you get in front of an audience, maybe you don't breathe quite the way you would like to. And this is why sometimes the inspiration of the music itself, just to dive into the music and just to feel the quality, is enough to kind of get us breathing and maybe the heart rate going in the right way. And you're starting with the second movement. So we have the prelude, which is all, as usual, it's very, very active and very extraordinary. And then comes the first dance movement, the Allemande. And you know what's really beautiful about the Allemande is always so fancy. Instead of it being so kind of like just straightforward like the prelude is, it's starting to say, okay, I've done the straightforward thing. Now I'm going to do the very fancy thing. But we have to be careful that we understand it is based on a dance idea. So where are the steps going to be? Because if we're playing, sorry, I'm just going to try to, everything is so incredibly beautifully slate, which is hard, is a bit tricky with a cello comes in, where to do it. Let me try that one. So let's think. So there's no obvious beat, except we have an upbeat. Now, this is the first movement that we have an upbeat, a true upbeat. And when the audience hears, that doesn't indicate an upbeat, does it? It's just a note. It's the start. But we have to show that it's an upbeat. So we have to breathe in a way to use it as to lead. So if we have that feeling, and one. So let's start with that, just because I think once you get going, it's much easier just to feel how you breathe for yourself and prepare your upbeat and show it the downbeat. Okay, now you need to relax a lot more, I think, because if you breathe in and you don't breathe out really well, then of course you've held your energy, and we actually want you to release your energy. So you want to breathe. Sometimes it's just better to breathe in and start breathing out rather than that feeling. Good. And now try to feel really down, because I notice you're lifting your feet a little bit off the ground and you're feeling up, but try to feel really this way, this way, yeah. Good, okay, now we're going on. So what's interesting now is the next beat is within a tide. We have a tide note, so there's no place where we're obviously going to. He's holding us in the air, which adds to our sense of tension. It's not very easy for us. And then we're going to go on, because the Allemande dance is really so it's in a 1 and 2 and rather than 1, 2, 3, 4, because if we play 4 that's really this beat. An Allemande is supposed to skip a beat. We're supposed to 1 and rather than 1, 2. So it's so it's actually very fast, decorative things, but the beat feels quite slow. And the reason I'm pointing this out is because a slow beat is calm for us. And a faster beat is obviously more exciting. So if you have more beats to tap your foot to, you will get more excited, but it's not an exciting movement. It's a very decorative movement. So you want the movement to the next beat with quite a lot of fast notes, but they're not so important, they're just decorative. That's a bit of a contradiction, really, isn't it? If it's decorative, it has to be important because that's decorated. But it's fancy. How best to explain it? Try playing a little bit faster as well and just see if you can get to the next, leave a beat out, so to speak. Yes, go on a little bit. Go on. Okay, now the reason I'm stopping you there is because we're still in D major here before you move on. That was really nice. I think everybody's starting to feel a little bit more like there's a swing, which is natural. And the swing allows us to breathe more easily. So I need you to still find places to breathe within that. That's so much better. Can you just do it one more time and explain to us? You know, we have to explain. It's very complex music. In some senses, we have to explain the music to the audience. A little bit. I mean, a little bit is like, okay, where are you going to tap your feet? And where are you going to breathe? Those are just two incredibly basic musical, well, human elements that we need to introduce. Once we have a few human elements, everybody starts to just get absorbed in the music more easily. Okay, good. So perhaps, are you noticing now that we have a chord for each note? We all start to recognize basic harmony. And when you've finished, that's... now I think you should breathe before you take the next voice. Because it's been a long time, and we just had a long, slow breath. You need maybe quite a quick breath to carry on. Because breathing is about energy as well, isn't it? And we want energy enough to continue, because if you don't breathe, your muscles seize up, your brain stops, and everybody goes to sleep. And we're only 2 bars in, so that's not a good sign. Yeah, beautiful. Okay. I'm always questioning myself because I've kind of explained the music to you. I've explained it to Lili as well. I hope that even if I hadn't explained it to you, you would understand it better from how she's playing. But it's our job as musicians to do that as we go along. It's like saying, okay, now breathe, now put your beat in, now relax, now don't relax. Now get excited. That's part of our communication with you. And we've got a lot to do here. So we have sometimes to get beyond how complicated it is to do it and to start thinking, actually, what are we here for? We're here to communicate. We're here to explain Bach in some sort of way and to absorb people. And the reason I'm saying that is because we have to find a way not to worry so much about what we're doing, to trust what you've learned, because clearly you've learned really, really well one of the most difficult pieces of music in the entire repertoire to play. So that's a huge, huge achievement, which I congratulate you on. But while we're struggling away doing these things, we can forget that you have achieved an amazing feat. I think if I gave my cello to anybody in the audience, they'd think twice about trying to. So think, you've already done that, all right? So try to think now how to be expressive, how to move the sound. One more time and carry on. I won't interrupt you. Try to look for those places. Don't worry if you don't get it all the way you'd like it to be. Just see if you can feel that you're throwing it out there, making them move with the music. Okay, so that's the first section. Well done. I think what I'd like to talk about now is how you're going to use the sound to do some of the things that I feel you're trying to do with the darkness and the light and the more serious moments and lighter moments. And I think sometimes that the hardest thing for us is that it's one instrument, it's one voice, and you're going to have to listen for a long time. You've paid for your tickets, you're sitting there, you will sit there until we've finished. And it's one cello, and you've got no contrast. And that's a dangerous thing. It's like me speaking to you in one tone of voice for 45 minutes. You're going to go completely mad because you'll just want me to change, do something, say something differently. Sometimes quietly, sometimes passionately, and sometimes secretively. And we need that. If I'm going to tell you a story, if you're going to hear the whole story and be involved in it, it's a whole series of different things that makes it more complete. And the danger is we are playing the instrument and we're making things a bit louder and a bit softer, but it's not really that different. And maybe because I'm a cellist, when I listen to cellists, I want them to say more. I always want to hear more, whether it's more that way or that way. So in our exploration of Bach, which, as I said earlier, is so challenging from a sound production point of view, it's important that you stretch yourself and you experiment and you really try everything you can to do something more. And the great thing is when it sounds really awful, we know immediately. We know very quickly. We hate that noise. So we say, okay, I won't do it like that. I'll do it like this. Let me try something else. So it can be, and you say, whoa, it's a little bit too much, really. Let me try, Okay, maybe it's not enough. Maybe it's just, maybe I'll use that later on somehow. But I'm already trying to see where the limits are. So what we need to do is just kind of experiment. Also with tempi as well. I was saying that we want the flow, but he doesn't say, this is the tempo. He says, you have to find your tempo for this, which is why everybody does it differently, and you should be doing it differently. So let's look at how you make different sounds as you go along, so that you can actually sometimes be a little bit angry, or sometimes say, okay, now we're calming down, and now we reach the middle point of the movement. It's not really finished yet. There's still a question mark. Are we going to continue? Yes, we are going to continue. So you're going to be speaking those things, and we're using our technique and sound production to try to speak in that way, to change our voice. So let's. This might be a very light moment. This could be quite, a high point. It might be the end of one section and then beginning of the next, but it could be a high point of. This could be more serious, or maybe not. And there's maybe some of you have heard me tell this story before, but it's so important, I think, to hear this story. Because Pablo Casals, who the greatest cellist maybe in history, found the Bach suites in a shop when he was a child, and he brought them to the world and to cellists forever after. And there's a story about when he was about 92 and he was at home in Puerto Rico, and he was visited by a friend, Mr. Schneider, who was giving concerts there. And Mr. came and stayed the night and got up very early in the morning to go to the rehearsal, and he heard Casals playing the beginning of the second suite. And he thought, I won't interrupt because he's obviously working on Bach. So he went off and he spent the whole day, rehearsals, concerts, got back really late, came into the house. What did he hear? And he thought, I have to interrupt and just say, look, have you been practicing all day? And he said, yes, I'm still searching. And that's what it was about. And that is our job, because in that first few notes, it can be said in so many different ways. And Bach has given us the whole world to decide, is it dark? Is it light? Could it be going that way? Could it be going? And this is a constant challenge for us, which is why it's such a fascinating subject and a fascinating way to be working. So I'd love you to just kind of give it a go, try pushing it one way or the other, and change the color, change the energy of the sound. Because you are changing your voice, you're changing what you're saying with the music. And I can help you do that in any way, but I'm sure you can do an awful lot, even just the first time. Yeah. Yes, but it was already... But come on, it was going really beautifully, wasn't it? You really created different color, different energy. Do you agree? Already, within moments. It's like saying, hey, I've really got something interesting to tell you. Can you just come and listen, please? That's what we need. You know, we're all the time drawing the interest. So, you know, this is a great story. You have to hear it. Good. Okay, just to talk in some technical ways of how we're going to move the music. You know, the bow is our way of blowing the sound through and out. And therefore, if the bow moves in a steady speed, at a steady line, we're going to have that single kind of sound. If it's moving, when you're moving, it's all changing how the sound comes, how much air you blow through. So concentrate really on how that's going to be changing all the time. Because, you know, it's like a wave. If you just go like this, when you push that water in front of you, if you just allow it, it just stops. There's no wave in front of you anymore. But if you keep changing, then as you change, you create more ripples. And that's what we're doing. We're changing the way the sound moves. So when you're going, that's changing. But it might go, can you hear how it's slightly moving? I'm maybe exaggerating a little bit, but I'm starting to feel that my body and movement is all about here, and not so much about all this stuff on the left hand, which is just complicated and makes us really obsessed. You know, string players are obsessed with the left hand because it is so complicated. And this seems like, oh, you just go backwards and forwards, it can't be that complicated. But it's like if you take this away, you have... If you take this away, you have... So it's quite important. Let's get really focused on how this is working for you. So how you're going to move it around and how you're going to change the speed and how you're going to change the weight. Because, you know, we have two basic principles in how we make sound. If you move fast, you make more sound because you're creating a bigger wave. You move slowly, the wave is very, very small and therefore it's very quiet. Then we have weight. And the weight you put on is like putting weight into your voice like this, and you can release it and you add weight to it like this. So it's a character control. So we have two, and of course those become something you can work with in combinations. But principally, fundamentally, if you move, you get more and more and more and more sound, and if you go less and less, like this. So we have to think about that and how to arrange. Sometimes we have to change the bowings in order to allow ourselves to have more sound. But I'd like you to think about how you're going to change those voices with your weight and with your movement. And let's go to the second half. So let's try to work that on that into a little bit fresh music now. Oh, that's a really incredible moment in the music. It's a super, super extraordinary surprise. We've got suddenly... and we were so high before, and suddenly we're so low. We're supposed to shock everybody. It's the developing part of the most extraordinary part of the movement. So let's just do that section one more time. And it was really nice how you were moving things, but I'd like, even now, just as an experiment, to do more. Okay, good. Really, really awkward things we have to do without the stream. This chord is really terrible for us. Is that more or is it less? The second chord. Well, it could be either, of course. But, you know, we don't have either or in the concert. We just have one chance. So you have to say, it is going to be like this. What's your choice for now? What would you like? More? More? Okay, let's go for it. Which maybe means you don't start too strong because you'll leave yourself a bit more space. Now watch the bow. I'm leaving myself plenty of space to increase. And when you make sound, you don't have to hold it. It's already out there in the room. It's not going to suddenly disappear. So you don't need to worry about sustaining too much. Because in a way, you're not throwing your sound into the space. So better to start by lots of movement, even if you then do less afterwards. D major. And that little bit afterwards is just, oh yeah, D major. Remember, we arrived, yes, but let me just say a little bit more. It's decoration of the D major. You know, D major is the brightest key of all suites. And it's also, he's just showing you in contrast to that how shockingly, incredibly dark it can be in its way, in what's related to it. Set us up in such a way, yeah? I'm sure you can try something different to make us shocked now that we know it's coming. Just think about bow speed. Don't worry about the notes. We know those already now, anyway. How about let's try another colour, just for now. Do something completely different now, just for your own discovery.
From there again? Or?
Yeah, let's do it one more time, because we're all learning the music, not just you and me. Good. I'm really, really impressed now, because you're really drawing me, and I hope everybody else, into the energy in the music. Because I talked about waves and about moving and bringing the audience towards us and sometimes pushing you away, which is what you're starting to do now. But also it's about the energy. It's about the energy. Why is this movement this way compared to the G, the final movement? It's that, what is it we recognize that makes it a contrast? Like I said before, just to have the same voices all the time isn't enough. So I'd love you just to play now as a contrast, because I felt so much more involved in what you were doing there. I hope you felt a little bit more, well, fulfilled, because, you know, there's such demands from this. You can just be really beaten down by the demands of it. Did you feel a bit better, a bit more expressive about it?
Yeah, no, totally. It's also just, you know, you get to know playing again with people the more you do it.
Oh my goodness, yes. Yeah. But would you play just a little bit of the Gigue?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Just as a contrast now, because I want you to say, okay, that character is now off the stage. Welcome. Okay, good. I'm sorry I'm interrupting, only because we have so little time. Great. So immediately, first thing we hear is a different sound coming from within you, right? Which was really great. It was something, you know, a Gigue is a rustic dance, so it shouldn't sound too refined, I don't think. It should have that roughness in it. So you did that really well. And also, we're now suddenly much more aware that there's a moving tempo. We've got a lot more to go. But which means you're going to have to breathe much faster. And you're going to have to tell us to breathe more. Yeah, however terribly or badly I played, but still hopefully trying to get you to breathe more and for you to breathe more. And it's also the final movement of the suite. So it's like farewell as well. So can you just try, and don't worry too much about how it sounds, because I'm not worried too much how terrible mine sounds, but just get the feeling of it, yeah. Okay. great. Now, I want to add just a little bit more contrast as well. So just to think a little bit further, because not everything too many importance. So I'm starting just to say, hang on everybody, just hang on, wait, we're not there yet, okay, now you can breathe, and now let's go again, here we come, again, and go like that. Because otherwise if it's just we're too present all the time and not being led in the music, we also get a bit kind of stuck in it. It's a sort of sense of like, okay. I know that. And, so just start to feed a little bit in the longer version. Brilliant. Okay, you're doing fantastically well. And into that, because that we have to move on now, but into that, I think you can also add a little bit more, sometimes a little bit more time. Because you're not being driven by an orchestra behind you or anybody else. You've got time to like little bit place things, now breathe and go on, and you have that space when you're on your own. I mean, that is the whole point in a way, if you're on your own, to take your time to place things and to move on. But I think it's a fantastic journey and you're doing brilliantly well, and it's just congratulations to Lili. Well done. Thank you. I mean, obviously you realise that we could just go on forever. And we could just go back over the first bar again and again and carry on to the second. So, but anyway, thank you very much. Who have we got next now? Hello. So welcome, Laura. And Laura, are you going to play D minor? The second suite, the one that Casals was battling with. And what are you going to play? Which movements? Okay, prelude, so we get to hear the Casals bit. Prelude, Allemande and Sarabande. Did you say courant and Sarabande? Courant. Okay, so we're doing first, third, and fourth movements. Okay, I'm going to sit and listen to you. Just do play all of them, and then, lovely. Take your time, tune. You okay there? Yes. done. Beautiful, beautiful. Well done, Laura. I think what you did so really beautifully was just to show us the seriousness of D minor, which is what this whole thing's about. I think actually, you know, the space, the time you had to breathe, the darkness, the shades, the dark colours, they're all beautifully done. You showed us clearly those things. And that's great, because I think those are the most important parts. And you started to show us also, and I think we can do more with this, there's a lot of pain in this music as well. In the darkness, do you agree? There's, you know, how he gets from this so he goes from one extreme of tension and pain, I think, to show us extraordinary emotions. And I think you did so well with that. I think what I would like to talk about a little bit is how to structure the movement, because having beautiful moments, the dark moments, the powerful moments in the music is one thing, but to make it fit together architecturally is very important, because Bach was the kind of genius of all geniuses of architecture. I mean, he was the inspiration for all music that has ever been written afterwards, because of his understanding of how it's built. So we have to try to learn about how the movement is built, just like we're looking at the plan, the architectural plans of a building. And, you know, first of all, you have to be able to walk in the door and then notice where we are, and then be led into the next room, and then to the next room, and then start to get a feel, actually, this is enormous. And there's so much to see. And then, of course, to have the completeness when you arrive back. All of that journey, Bach is absolutely genius at that. And we need to look in two ways. In a way, like architects look. They look in the very smallest detail, and they'll also look at the overview of the whole thing. And when we're playing, we need to kind of hover over the whole movement, or maybe the whole suite, and see where we're going in terms of how big is this? Is it a small area that we're working in? Is it sharp, tall, or is it broad, or what's it going to be? And then also we have to look at those tiny details of, like, the timbre, the quality of the sound as we're drawing the string. So there's tiny details, and we have to look in both perspectives all the time, which is very hard to do. And there's a kind of trick, actually, for kind of understanding how to see the shape of the movement. Sometimes it's just to play it much too fast. Because if you play, you know, you know, you see just that phrase. But when you play we start to see what is important, where we're arriving in. We finally always So, you know, okay, I'm not playing a game. I actually think this is something that we have to do. Because we get very obsessed, again, with all the tiny details and stop listening to where the harmony is leading us. And sometimes we need a continuo cello player to play the chords, or an organ or something. Is there one here? I don't know. We could just play the chords under us so that we could feel where things are moving and when they're not moving, and not get too distracted with every detail. So it's a big ask suddenly to ask Laura to have all of these ideas and to play with those things in mind. But it's like this telling the story, not saying too much all the time, because we need to get to the next point, the next arrival place, and then to the next one, and so on. How are we going to try to do that? Well, you can try to play a bit faster as well, or at least to have that in mind, that you're not giving away everything too soon. Because when you played, you beautifully gave us the silences, beautifully gave us the darkness, but then again you gave it to us again, and then you gave it again. And sometimes it's just too many times. Try to see about the tension. And maybe I might play a few chords just to help us understand, you know that, sorry, I'm talking a lot because there's just so much to say about this. The Bach suites are about a journey of keys, harmonic progressions. We have, to start with, G major, first suite. Everything about G major, the related keys that make G major such a nice, friendly, calm. It's just, easy, yeah? And what does he do next? He says, let's go to D minor. Favorite key of dramatic, dark music, and everything to do with that, pain, darkness, personal qualities. Then he says C major. Yeah? Okay, folks. It's bright and open and powerful, yeah? Why is it a big C major scale to start with? C major. Perfect for the cello, which is bottom string C. We just have that, it's just strong, yeah? Then what does he do? He says, let's go for E flat now. Serious key, E flat, strong and serious, not bright and powerful C major, strong and serious. Then he goes to C minor. Tragic. C minor is a tragic key. Makes D minor sound light almost, doesn't it? Beethoven loves C minor, just like deadly serious, tragic key. And where do you go after that? D major. All of that stuff. Smiling, brilliant, bright, nowhere near any other key that we've had. So I'm just saying, I speak entirely from the way I feel that this is. The Bach suites are a journey of understanding keys which create moods and emotions. And therefore, within the work within each suite is about working with that series of connected emotions. And so, yes, every time you move from D minor, suddenly it's not D minor anymore, is it? It's, yeah. So somehow the notes in between are not so important. I mean, they're incredibly important, aren't they, of course. But there's something that's even more important, that you arrive from a... And when we're working with Bach, sometimes we actually need to just stop and compare where we are to where we started, because it explains to us our journey. Because if you don't recognize him as being very different from, then basically you haven't gone anywhere. You have to recognize how far you've already gone. It's all chords, isn't it? If you were a pianist, you would just fill in all the spaces with the chords. Okay, you play something and try to show me now a bit more about what the chord means to you. That's quite a big question, isn't it, really? What is Bach? We can't be superficial about this. We have to be deadly serious as how we're going to do this. Difficult. It's, a lifelong challenge. Have a go at something and we'll see if we can, move along. Well done. I definitely feel now that we're on more of a journey, which is what we're talking about all the time today, this journey. What I would like to also add is that it's very important for us to understand where Bach is writing the beginnings of the chords. And sometimes we feel as cellists that the top note is the place where we're arriving with our chord. But actually what we feel when we listen to music is the bottom of the chord. The rest is just like the explanation and so you feel like we're starting here. We're not playing, what's this? Okay, we're here now. So let's understand where that Bach very often writes, the important thing is the beginning of the chord. The rest is decorating the chord. Here, not. It's very easy for us to feel the top note, but it's not. It's only because we have a single line instrument that we are having to spread it. But it could be a chord, chum, chum. Yes. So be careful not to stress. Yeah. It's the bottom of the chord we want. It's where you would play, if you were playing pizzicato with me. That's where you would be placing your chord. Can you try that? From the beginning, yeah, because, you know, why not? So be very careful, sorry, just Laura, be careful, very careful you don't pull the sound, because it's easy for you physically to do that, but it's not actually what you want musically. So just be very careful, and of course it's a habit, but you have to change that too. We've got lots of things to deal with here. One more time. Good. Good. Okay. So now that we're noticing a little bit more where the chords start, you also notice that he's creating rhythmic structures here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Still in the first beat of the bar, but not here. So suddenly he's created, instead of 1 bar, 1 bar, 1 bar, it's now 2 bars. But now, yeah, so it's typical structures of like 1, 2, a little bit more, a little bit, a couple of steps. Now here we go with the big one. Now this one's going to take us all the way to here. So that's already changing the tension in the music, and it's changing, it's like saying, just here's open the door, and here, and take a step, but now look around you. And let's move on now a little bit. Do you see what I mean? So that we have to figure out which are the really important chords when sometimes when we're journeying to that point. And then we have to look at the whole score and say, okay, which is the highest point in this entire movement? Because there will be one, won't there? What's your feeling about the highest moment in this movement? Where do you think that might be?
I kind of thought the fourth chord.
The chord before he leaves the silence. Yeah, that's a very, very high point, isn't it? Mm. So, if that's your high point, and you can make a drawing, I sometimes say to my students, draw the music. Make a painting here, or just draw lines and say, okay, where we're going here and down here and up in here and now here. And if you like, put in some colours, because is this hot or is it cold? Is it powerful? What is it to you? It's a painting of some sort. Anyway, it doesn't really matter as long as it's kind of a stimulus to helping you understand how to create the music in that form. So if you've picked out this high point, which is interesting because it's got a big space, it's like coming to a cliff edge, you know, what is going to happen after that? But you've got that now. So everything you do, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, forwards, longer, up, nothing is going to be like that moment. And that's incredibly important for you as a musician, not to arrive too soon, or not to find that you've achieved that point. So while you are looking at your details and your chords, remember you're looking over the top and you're thinking, yes, but I've still got to do it more. I've got to climb a bit more. I've got to come on, everybody. We're going to get to the top of this hill. And when you just unbelievable views when you get to the top of this hill. You will not believe it, but come with me. And then we'll arrive there. And that's what you're doing. You're taking them to the top of that hill. And then who knows what's after that? Is it downhill, or maybe, oh, no, there's a much more serious hill after that. I didn't even think about that one before. Yeah, so we are really on this kind of terrain. Given that we have so little time, and we could spend all day on this movement, let's go on to the next, was it the courant? Yes. I'm really sorry because there's just so much to say, isn't there? But let's do, just to understand and have an overview of that as well. You know what, a courant, you know what, each dance has a, so the allemande is as I said before, is the dance with the missing step, like the double step dance. The courant, so we had the prelude that you've just played, then we have an allemande, which is the fancy one with the double step, and then we have the courant, and the courant is a running dance. So run with it. Sorry interrupting you in the middle of it. Okay, so what kind of running dance is this? I mean, is it is it soft and easy, or is it... No. Okay, can you show us what it is then? Good. You know what's so difficult, and it goes back to what I was saying before, is we have to speak with a different voice for every movement because they're a different character. And we have one instrument, the same 4 strings, just 4 strings in a box, and we've got an awful lot to do with that. So, if it's going to be, to me somehow, let me just say, I feel like this movement is a running dance, but it's also a little bit angry somehow. It's not beautiful, and it's the other side of D minor. It's the power side of D minor, if you like. And I think, this chord is upside down chord, by the way. We don't play them, we go the other. So we continue. It's just kind of like, that's how I feel somehow, because it's got so many notes, they're all separated, and I'm going to talk to you a little. And it's short movements in the bow. It's not breathing too slowly because you haven't got time. We're coming, we're fast pacing. A little bit. Okay, maybe I'm going too much. I don't know. Maybe I'm not. Maybe it's not enough. A bit kind of like contained physically. Don't try to don't try to get too big because that's just going to slow you down. But again, we still have to think about where the chords are arriving. There's an upbeat. Yeah, you were doing some of them very well, but we have to be careful now because there's not a lot of time to breathe, but just have to say them very quickly. A little punctuation. Give it a go. Let's give it a go, yeah? Yes. That's great. You see, you're creating a reaction because you genuinely feel that tension in the music all the time. And the second half, quickly, play the second half. Yes. Well, you know, what can you do after that? Well, there's only one thing that you can possibly do after that, and that is to play this utterly incredible saraband. And I think if you'd started it the way you finished it, that would have been even more fantastic. Because after that, this is recovery time, isn't it? It's time to get to the heart of the music, which is going to be your... we're in the church of music now. So serious. And the saraband it was a dance that originally started off as a love dance, but a little bit saucier than that. In fact, a lot saucier. It was banned by the King of Spain or somebody because he thought it was too salacious and sexy, basically. So he banned the saraband dance. And it just became, slowly, to be the heart instead. So it is the heart of the music. The saraband is where the deepest feelings are in the music. So that's perfect after a courante, because you can't get too sexy after that, you know, too exhausted, and really just come very, very personal. So I think all your sounds that you make, like you finish with that really personal sound, that's what is going to draw us to something very, very tender and very, very beautiful. And you did it right there and then. And I would say you want to be very careful with the saraband not to go too far out of that. Because otherwise, when you start the next dance movements, they won't seem as light as they should in contrast. Because again, what happens after a saraband has to be something, well, it can't be that serious. Otherwise, it would be too much to cope with. Thank you very much, Laura. Well done.